Did you know that you do not have to cut out carbohydrates to fix your blood sugar? In fact, the fastest way to fix your blood sugars is actually more about adding foods, not eliminating entire food groups like carbs. And I have seen it firsthand. I have hundreds and hundreds of patients who have turned their numbers around in just days by adding these foods to their daily routine. And not just temporarily, they are still keeping their sugars low without medications for months and even years. So in this video, I am going to show you how to use each of these 10 foods to fully optimize your body chemistry and reverse insulin resistance at the cellular level so you can bring down your sugars quickly and naturally, and most importantly, sustainably. Before I get into the first one, do me a quick favor. If you want more videos that explain the why behind your body instead of just handing you a pill, hit subscribe, give this a like, and leave me a comment telling me what your morning fasting number was this week. I read every single one of them carefully, and the age and the numbers of this audience genuinely shape what I cover next. So let us get into it. Here is what almost no one explains to you in a 12-minute office visit. High blood sugar almost always starts upstream with a hormone called insulin. Insulin is the hormone that unlocks your cells, so glucose, that is the sugar in your blood, can move out of your bloodstream and into the cell where it belongs. When you have spent years riding the blood sugar roller coaster, your cells stop answering the door. The insulin knocks, and the cell stays shut. We call that insulin resistance. Your pancreas pumps out more and more insulin to compensate, your blood sugar climbs anyway, and the standard answer is a prescription that pushes even more insulin into a system that is already overwhelmed. The system earns money when you stay on medication, not when you get well. That is economics, not malice. There is no revenue and almost no time in a short office visit to teach you how food talks directly to your insulin receptors. So I am going to do that right now. My name is Dr. David Mercer, and in 28 years of clinical practice, I have watched this exact pattern repeat in thousands of patients across every background and every set of circumstances. Every one of these 10 foods does one of 3 jobs. It slows the sugar coming in, it cools the inflammation that keeps your cells deaf to insulin, or it wakes the insulin receptor back up, so your own body does the work it was designed to do. You do not have to do all 10 of these tomorrow. Add them in over the next couple of weeks and stack them on each other intentionally. The results compound significantly over time. Let me show you the first one. The first food is eggs, whole eggs, yolk included. For years, people were steered away from the yolk and told it was the dietary villain behind heart disease, and that advice pushed millions of people toward sugary breakfast cereals that were far worse for blood sugar than any egg ever was. Let me set that straight with something most people have never been told. A whole egg is almost entirely protein and fat with virtually no carbohydrate, which means on its own it barely moves your blood sugar at all. The yolk is where almost all the nutrition lives, including choline, fat-soluble vitamins, and the very protein structure that makes this food so powerful for blood sugar stability. But the real power is what physicians call the second meal effect. When you start your day with eggs instead of toast or cereal, you steady your blood sugar not just at breakfast, but all the way through to lunch. You walk into your next meal with calmer numbers and a meaningfully smaller spike after it. The protein and fat keep you full, so the mid-morning cravings that send people toward crackers and cookies quietly disappear. In my practice, swapping a cereal breakfast for 2 or 3 eggs is one of the single fastest changes I see reflected in a morning fasting glucose reading within the first week. 2 to 3 whole eggs in the morning is a solid target for most people. Scramble them, boil them ahead for the week, or fold in some spinach. You are going to see how naturally this pairs with another food later on the list. Number 2 is cinnamon, and you almost certainly already have it in your cupboard. But the kind you have matters enormously, and most people have purchased the wrong one their entire lives without knowing the difference. The common grocery cinnamon is cassia, and it carries a compound called coumarin that accumulates in the liver with daily use and becomes problematic over time. The one you want is Ceylon cinnamon, sometimes labeled true cinnamon or real cinnamon. It is milder in flavor, substantially safer to consume every single day, and it is the only version I recommend to my own patients. What makes Ceylon cinnamon effective for blood sugar is a group of polyphenols, natural plant compounds that behave almost like insulin themselves. They physically help your insulin receptors grip glucose more tightly at the cell membrane, and they slow your stomach from emptying too quickly after a meal, which is one of the main causes of a spike. The effect is real and it is measurable, not theoretical. Research from the Human Nutrition Program at the USDA found that under half a teaspoon a day meaningfully lowered fasting glucose in adults with type 2 diabetes who were already on medication. If you skip this one, you are leaving an easy win sitting in your spice rack at no additional cost. Use about a quarter to half a teaspoon of Ceylon cinnamon a day, stirred into your oatmeal, your morning coffee, or a smoothie. The key is to pair it with a meal that contains carbohydrates because that is exactly when you want your receptors gripping harder and your stomach releasing more slowly. Third on the list is apple cider vinegar, and this is the one with the fastest visible effect on a glucose meter of anything in this entire video. If you have a meter at home, you can watch this one work tonight. The active ingredient is acetic acid. It does two things at once. It slows your stomach from emptying, so the carbohydrates in your meal arrive in your bloodstream gradually rather than all at once, and it helps your muscles pull glucose out of your blood and use it for fuel more efficiently. The research here is strong. Work led by researchers at Arizona State University found that 1 tablespoon of vinegar before a carbohydrate meal lowered the after-meal blood sugar spike by roughly 20% in people with insulin resistance. That is a drug-sized effect from something that costs a few dollars a bottle. Take 1 tablespoon, and this matters, diluted in a full glass of water 10 to 15 minutes before a meal that contains carbohydrates. Always dilute it. Never drink it straight because the acid is hard on tooth enamel and the lining of the throat. And if you are already on any medication for blood sugar, speak with your doctor first, because vinegar combined with that medication can push your numbers down faster than expected. Number 4 is avocado. Most people still think of it as a high-calorie fat to limit, and that fear is actively costing them better blood sugar control. Let me reframe this completely. The fat in an avocado is monounsaturated fat, the same family as olive oil, and it is one of the most blood sugar friendly things you can put on a plate because of how it interacts with everything else in the meal. The reason is straightforward. The healthy fat and the substantial fiber inside an avocado slow your entire meal down simultaneously. When you add half an avocado to a plate of rice or a piece of whole grain toast, you are not removing the carbohydrate. You are putting a physiological brake on how fast it converts to blood sugar in your bloodstream. The glucose climbs gently and steadily instead of spiking sharply. Over time, consistent consumption of monounsaturated fat has also been shown in multiple studies to improve insulin sensitivity itself, meaning the underlying problem gradually improves, not just the meal-by-meal response. Half an avocado a day is a sensible and sustainable amount for most people. Put it on your eggs in the morning, mash it onto whole grain toast, or slice it into a salad that already has a starch in it. Anywhere you have a carbohydrate on the plate, avocado is softening the blood sugar response. And now you see exactly why those eggs and avocado belong together at the same breakfast plate every morning. Fifth is broccoli sprouts, and I want you to pay close attention here because this is the most underused food on this entire list. Not full-grown broccoli. The small 3-day-old sprouts sold in the produce section or grown on your own counter in a jar. Ignore that distinction and you miss almost all of the benefit. Broccoli sprouts are loaded with a compound called sulforaphane, and the sprouts contain somewhere between 50 and 100 times more of it than a head of mature broccoli. Sulforaphane does something that almost none of the other foods here do as directly. It goes to your liver and quiets down the overnight glucose factory. Your liver manufactures sugar while you sleep, and in insulin resistance it produces far too much, which is why so many people wake up with a high fasting number they cannot explain despite not having eaten anything. A study from Lund University in Sweden gave concentrated sulforaphane to people with type 2 diabetes and brought their fasting blood sugar down measurably, with the strongest effect in exactly the group whose numbers were hardest to control. You can grow broccoli sprouts on your counter in a mason jar for pennies or buy them fresh in the produce section. A small handful, about a quarter cup on a salad or in a sandwich most days, is plenty. Do not cook them hard because high heat destroys the active compound. Eat them raw or barely wilted. So far, every food has been doing the same quiet work in the background, slowing the sugar down or waking the receptor back up, and we are only 5 in. The next group is where things get even more interesting, and if someone you care about is struggling with their numbers right now, please send them this video, because this is the information nobody sat them down and properly explained. Number 6 is chia seeds. These are tiny gray and black seeds that punch far above their size. If you have ever seen chia sit in liquid and transform into a thick gel, you have already seen exactly how they work inside your gut. Chia is one of the richest sources of soluble fiber you can buy anywhere. When it meets the water in your stomach, it forms a thick gel that wraps around the carbohydrates in your meal and slows their absorption dramatically. The sugar releases slowly and steadily, so you avoid the spike and the crash that leaves you shaky and hungry an hour after eating. Chia also carries a plant-based omega-3 fat that helps calm the low-grade chronic inflammation sitting underneath insulin resistance. Cool that inflammation and the cells start listening to insulin again. 1 to 2 tablespoons a day does the job. Stir them into yogurt, drop them in a glass of water with a squeeze of lemon, or blend them into a smoothie. Give it 10 minutes to gel before you drink it, and drink plenty of water alongside because all that fiber needs liquid to move properly through your system. Seventh on the list is fatty fish, specifically salmon and mackerel. This one does not work by slowing your meal down. It works on the deeper problem, the root reason your cells went deaf to insulin in the first place. Insulin resistance is driven in large part by chronic low-grade inflammation that most people carry for years without knowing it. When your body is quietly inflamed year after year, that inflammation physically interferes with the insulin signal at the surface of the cell membrane. Salmon and mackerel are loaded with 2 omega-3 fats called EPA and DHA, and these are among the most powerful natural anti-inflammatory compounds currently known to science. They reduce the inflammatory signals, the cell membrane becomes healthier and more fluid, and the insulin receptor starts working the way it was designed to work. The patients in my practice who eat fatty fish twice a week consistently show calmer, more stable numbers over time. Aim for 2 servings a week, roughly the size of your palm each. Wild salmon, mackerel, sardines, and herring are all excellent choices. Bake it, grill it, or buy it canned if that fits your budget better. Canned mackerel and sardines are some of the cheapest and most nutritionally effective foods on this entire list. Number 8 is walnuts. Of all the nuts available to you, this is the one I direct patients toward first because of what it does simultaneously for the lining of your blood vessels and your insulin response. Walnuts are rich in polyunsaturated fat and the same plant omega-3 found in chia seeds. That fat improves the function of your endothelium, the thin inner lining of your blood vessels, which is one of the first structures that chronically high blood sugar damages silently over time. At the same time, the combination of fat, fiber, and protein in walnuts blunts the blood sugar rise after a meal and has been shown to lower fasting insulin levels, which is the number beneath your blood sugar reading that tells you exactly how hard your pancreas is straining to compensate. Eat a small handful as a snack in place of crackers or a processed cookie, and you have taken a sugar spike and turned it into a nearly flat line. A small handful is about a quarter cup or 7 to 10 whole walnuts. Keep them raw or dry roasted, never the candied or honey-coated variety. Use them to replace a processed snack, not to stack on top of one. Number 9 is blueberries, and this is the one that surprises most of my patients because they were told to stay away from fruit. Not all fruit behaves the same way inside your body, and blueberries are in a category of their own. They sit low on the glycemic index, meaning they release their natural sugars slowly, and they are packed with compounds called anthocyanins. These are the pigments that give blueberries their deep blue color, and inside your cells, they do something remarkable. Anthocyanins have been shown to improve insulin sensitivity by activating specific pathways that help glucose move into muscle cells more efficiently. They also reduce oxidative stress in blood vessel walls, which is one of the key mechanisms through which chronically high blood sugar causes long-term vascular damage. Research from the University of Michigan found that participants consuming blueberry bioactives daily showed meaningful improvements in insulin sensitivity compared to a control group. For people managing blood sugar, that matters considerably. A half cup to 1 cup of fresh or frozen blueberries counts equally. Frozen blueberries are just as effective as fresh and substantially cheaper. Add them to your egg and avocado breakfast, stir them into yogurt, or eat them as a standalone snack. They are one of the few genuinely sweet foods that work for you rather than against you. The 10th food is bitter melon, and I want you to stay with me here because this one has the most direct mechanism of anything on this list. Bitter melon is a vegetable used for centuries across Asia, India, and parts of Africa, and modern research has been catching up with what traditional medicine observed long ago. It contains at least 3 active compounds studied for their blood sugar effects. The first is charantin, which has been shown to lower blood glucose by acting on muscle tissue to increase glucose uptake directly. The second is a compound called polypeptide P, a plant insulin analog, meaning it behaves in ways that mimic the action of insulin inside the body. The third is Visine, which activates a cellular pathway that several prescription diabetes medications also target. In practice, bitter melon is available as a fresh vegetable in Asian grocery stores, as a juice, or in standardized capsule form. If you try the fresh vegetable, slice it thinly and stir-fry it with garlic and a small amount of oil. The taste is genuinely bitter, which is where it gets its name, and that bitterness signals the active compounds are present and intact. If the taste is difficult at first, start with the juice form diluted in water or a standardized extract. Research reviewed through studies at the University of the Philippines and other institutions has shown meaningful reductions in fasting blood sugar with consistent bitter melon use. Not everyone will embrace this one immediately, but for the patients willing to add it, the results are consistently among the most impressive I see from a single food addition. Let me tell you about someone I will call Donna. 63 years old, recently retired, came to see me frightened because her fasting sugar was sitting around 180, and her doctor had just told her it was time to add a second medication. She did not want to spend the rest of her life climbing the medication ladder, and she was scared of where this was heading because she had watched her own mother lose toes and then her eyesight to this same disease. She came in not looking for a prescription. She came in looking for an answer. We did not cut her carbohydrates to nothing. We did not put her on a restrictive elimination diet. We added eggs and avocado in the morning in place of the cereal she had been eating for 30 years, a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar before her larger meals, broccoli sprouts on her lunch sandwich, Ceylon cinnamon in her morning coffee, chia seeds stirred into her afternoon yogurt, fatty fish on the menu twice a week, walnuts replacing the processed snack she had been grabbing every afternoon, blueberries added to her breakfast most mornings. She did not feel like she was on a diet. She felt like she was eating better than she had in years. Within the first week, her fasting numbers started coming down. She called my office after 4 days. Within 3 months, working in coordination with her own physician, she had stepped down off that second medication entirely, and her A1C had moved from the diabetic range back into the pre-diabetic range. 2 years later, it has held. She did not starve herself. She ate more food, just the right food, and her own body did the rest. So, let me tie all 10 of these together, because this is the reason they work when simply cutting carbs alone fails every single time. Every one of these foods is giving your insulin system its job back without starving you. The fiber foods, the chia, the avocado, the blueberries, slow the glucose down so your pancreas never has to panic and flood your blood with insulin just to chase a spike. The fatty fish and walnuts cool the chronic inflammation that was physically jamming the signal at the surface of the cell membrane, the very reason the cell stopped answering in the first place. The cinnamon and the vinegar walk directly up to the insulin receptor and help it grip glucose again, making your existing insulin more effective without adding more of it. The broccoli sprouts quiet the liver that was producing excess sugar overnight while you slept, which is where so many of those unexplained morning highs are actually coming from. The eggs steady the entire morning arc and protect the meals that follow. And the bitter melon works at the cellular pathway level in a way that almost nothing else available in a standard grocery store can replicate. Do that meal after meal, day after day, and the cell that stopped answering the door slowly starts opening it on the first knock again. That is what reversing insulin resistance means at the cellular level. And once it begins to happen, your body holds your sugar down on its own, which is exactly why Donna's numbers held for 2 full years without adding medication. Before I give you tonight's plan, I need to draw one clear line because I would be doing you a disservice if I left this out. If you are currently on insulin or a sulfonylurea, one of the older blood sugar medications, these foods can lower your sugar fast enough that your current medication dose may suddenly become too high for where your body now is, and that can push you into a dangerous hypoglycemic episode. That is a real risk, and I want you to take it seriously. So add these foods with your doctor actively monitoring your numbers and let them adjust your medication downward as your body improves. Do not stop any prescription on your own. Bring this list to your next appointment and let your physician guide the transition safely and at the right pace for your specific situation. Here's what to do starting tonight. 5 simple steps. 1. Tomorrow morning, replace your cereal or toast with 2 to 3 whole eggs and half an avocado. That single swap changes your blood sugar trajectory for the entire day, not just breakfast. This is the easiest and fastest change on this list. 2. Buy Ceylon cinnamon, not cassia, and start a quarter teaspoon a day stirred into your coffee or oatmeal. Check the label before you buy. It must say Ceylon. 3. Before your biggest carbohydrate meal tomorrow, take 1 tablespoon of apple cider vinegar diluted in a full glass of water, 15 minutes before you eat. Set a timer. The timing matters. 4. This week, add chia seeds to 1 meal each day and put fatty fish on the menu 2 evenings. Replace your afternoon snack with a small handful of raw walnuts and notice what it does to your afternoon energy. 5. Start adding a half cup of blueberries to your morning and look for broccoli sprouts in your produce section this week. If you want to go further, find bitter melon at an Asian grocery store or look for it in extract form. Stack all of these in over the next 2 weeks. You are not removing the foods you love. You are adding the foods that actively protect you. Now, everything we covered today brings your blood sugar down during the day and after your meals. But a significant number of you have told me the same deeply frustrating thing, that your highest reading of the entire day comes first thing in the morning before you have eaten a single bite. You fasted all night, you were careful, and your sugar went up anyway. There is a specific biological reason your liver does exactly that while you sleep, and there is a direct and targeted way to address it. I made a video explaining precisely what happens overnight and exactly how to wake up to a lower fasting number. I will put it right here on the screen. Go watch that one next, and I will see you there. Dr. David Mercer.